Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bible Talk with Amery. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to be having a segment called Young SDAs. Young SDAs. And what we're doing is we're going to be talking about a few issues and getting a few different perspectives from people in the SDA community as to what the challenges are, things that people are struggling with, and some real life solutions. Today, we're going to be talking to a brother and a friend of mine named Eric. And first of all, Eric, we did your testimony about 9 months ago. I was looking at the videos about 9 months ago, and towards the end of the testimony, we brought up SALT, but we were supposed to talk about it a little bit more. So SALT is an acronym for
service and love together.
All right, service and love together. And so I just want to briefly ask you, why did you start SALT?
Well, the reason, I guess if we could break it down, to three reasons. The first reason would be that we saw a lack of unity in the church. So, literally my home church was directly across the street from another church, but the two churches weren't working together in the community. So there would be times when we door knock, but we door knock on the same doors that the other church door knocked on. And we tried to try and work that out. It didn't exactly, it wasn't working out. So we wanted to develop something that can unite different churches together for the same mission or same outreach, same project. So that was one reason. The second reason is we saw a lack of outreach and service being done. We saw a lot of evangelistic kind of projects, which is good, but we didn't see much service projects being done. So, for example, really creating relationships with the homeless, really getting deep with a community, and creating those relationships and meeting their needs. We saw a lack of that. And the third thing was we saw the service projects and outreach that was being done. We saw a lack of what I call relationship evangelism, or some people call friendship evangelism, where outreach and service is not about just giving someone something and then disappearing, but it's more about creating a relationship, learning their name, finding out what needs they have, meeting with them again. And so we wanted to develop something where we can encourage people and also practice in our model relationship and friendship evangelism. So those are kind of like the three reasons why that first inspired.
Okay, very good. I think there definitely is a need for coordination. We have a lot of churches in this area, and very rarely do you hear of churches working together and doing stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that's kind of sad. It's like we have our own little cliques.
Yeah, and it's crazy because this is also a big inspiration. I didn't mention this. There's two conferences here, and so you have the regional conference and the Florida conference. And some people refer to them as the Black Conference and the White Conference. And so, there's regional conference churches and there's Florida conference churches. And even though Florida conference might have events to get all the Florida conference churches together, even though the regional conference might have events to get the regional churches together, there's no middleman. There's no one bringing both conference churches together. And so that's something that we wanted to accomplish as well through SALT.
Perfect. Okay, that's a great little strategy to get people together, and I think it works. I think what I've noticed with SALT as well, I've noticed that there are people there. For instance, I met some people today that had well-meaning intentions, but they told me they didn't even go to church. One guy said, "I haven't been to church in 10 years," but he's out there serving, and I think through his service. And at SALT, at the homeless feeding, there's a little church service going on. So he's actually getting fed, and he doesn't even realize it.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing that I've noticed about SALT.
Yeah. We've also it's really cool. And on that note, we've also had churches. I mean, we have a Lutheran church that volunteers with us. We had a Pentecostal church that's come out a couple times and volunteers with us. And so, obviously all of our leadership and is Adventist, but to have other churches come and to serve with us, the one thing that we can all agree on with other Christian denominations is service, is outreach, reaching people. So, and serving others, meeting their needs. So that's been a cool thing to experience too. So,
all right, perfect. Okay, so we're doing this talk today, and this is the pilot, I guess, for Young SDAs. We're gonna get more people, and we're gonna get more discussions going. But I guess what I want to get into, since you are a leader, I wanted to get your opinion on some of these things. And in your opinion, what are some issues young SDAs are facing today?
Well, I think the primary thing is we see a lot of Adventist young adults. We're talking about young adult age, right?
Yeah. Like 20s, late teens, 20s.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest issue is, we see a lot of them leaving the church, a really huge number leaving the church. And there's several reasons for that. I think one thing is there's no community for young adults, and so that was another reason. Keep going back to reasons why we started SALT. There was a lack of community for the young adult age. So we realize and we see that young adults. Well, okay. When you look at churches, a lot of churches have a really small number of young adults. I've been to churches that have 3 or 4. Been to churches with 8. Churches with a little more than that.
That's sad.
And it's crazy because all these churches here in this area are so close to each other.
Right.
But even if the church itself cannot create a community for the young adults, there needs to be something out there that is a community for young adults. So since we've started, we've been able to kind of create a consistent community for young adults, which has been a real blessing. I think that's a big need. And different young adults have different. We've seen other young adult ministries kind of rise up after that, and different young adults have different preferences. Maybe when it comes to music or to different things. And so a cool thing about this is not only does there need to be a community for young adults, there needs to be a community that everyone can feel a part of. Right. So that's one thing. I think another thing is when it comes to young adults, they need to feel like they're making a difference. Right. True. True. If you look at the world today, there are so many people, when you talk about race equality and that kind of thing, you see young adults leading the forefront of that. All these activism, all these things that's going on in the world, we see young adults wanting to be a part of something big. They want to be a part of something of change, and somewhere needs to provide that meaning for them. And it should be the church. It should be the church. But if the church isn't doing it, there needs to be a community out there for them to do it. Right. And then the third thing, I think a lot of the time they're not being challenged. I think they when it comes to the messages in the church, when it comes to Bible studies, they need to be challenged. It can't be stuff that they've grown up listening to their whole life. I mean, we need to get a little deeper. We need to go from milk to solid food. I got you. Yeah, good point. Know what I'm saying? These are some great points. So that's kind of what I think if I had to pick 3. You as you were speaking about SALT, it's true. You're completely right, because you have vision. I noticed that. You have vision. You're a leader. You started this ministry, and it's doing wonderful things. I'm sure people are growing closer to God as a result of this. People are becoming more they see the humanity in homeless people. They're not just, people who look dirty, and walk around. These are actually people who have stories. But you're right about community, because I've made friends through SALT.
through your ministry. I've met Daniel.
Oh, Daniel, yeah.
I met Daniel, and and we've become friends. And I shared this book with him. This book that's in front of you, and he's read it. We've had discussions, and we've we've done. He's been on the radio show, so we've collaborated, and I've met other people, and it's a good meeting point. And you're right, and it's good for young people to be involved. And I think, it reminds me of this Bible verse, and it says "Forsake not the gathering of the brethren, or forsake not the assembling of yourselves," depending on what version.
Hebrews 11:25, right?
Is that Hebrews 11:25?
Yeah, I believe so.
And that verse is so important for a lot of reasons, because if you don't gather in church, and if you don't have community, whether it's between churches or whether it's in your church, if you don't gather, people are going to gather somewhere else, right?
Right.
Because we need that community,
Exactly.
right? So
we've been built for that community.
We've been built for it. So it's like they're either going to gather. So if it's not happening in church, if they're not feeling the love in church, guess what? They're going to end up in the club. They're going to end up in the bars, right? They're going to go where all the other young people are, right?
Yeah, right.
One of the things I see, and you can jump in at any time here. One of the things I see is, I feel, when I was a little bit younger, I'm in my upper 30s right now, but when I was in my 20s, I noticed that if I was at a church where there weren't enough young people, like if there's like 2 or 3 young people, and I don't even know this dude, he doesn't seem friendly, or if he's not, somebody I would, we have similar interests or whatever. I'm looking for another church.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think the good thing about SALT and the challenge that young people face in the SDA church today is. SALT isn't necessarily church, right, where church has a set of like rules, right? Got to be reverent, which is a good thing. Yeah. Not hating on reverence. If there's a service, like today we had communion service. Yeah. There's not much time for people to talk, right, in the actual church service, but there's before church, Sabbath school. But you need time to fellowship. You need time to have a loose format. You see what I'm saying? So anyway, those are just a few things that came to mind.
Yeah. I just wanted to correct myself. I wanted to make sure I gave the right verse.
Right.
But it's actually Hebrews 10:25, and just to read it since I have it open. Not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as ye see the day approaching.
Amen. And right now over there in the sanctuary, they are actually talking about this topic right now. The day is approaching, and they've assembled themselves, and they're saying we should have more people here. Right. And last week we did a discussion. Not to get ahead of myself, we're going to actually talk about this a little bit, but there's some really significant events happening right now, and I decided to do this Young SDAs discussion because I feel like a lot of young SDAs are asleep, to be honest, and I want them to wake up, and I want them to have that community, even if they can have it, even if it's online. That would be something good. Or if online could be a start. Right. What do you think about that?
Yeah, as far as providing community for young adults and it being online, I think
even as a start.
Yeah, as a start, I think that's a great way. There might be some young adults who are in Idaho, and then there's only 10 of them, and they might need some community with other young adults. Actually, I think that'd be a great idea. Starting a community online, that young adult Adventists and other Christians, can come and be a part of it and maybe exchange ideas, talk to each other. I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
I think I want to talk about, before we talk about community in a little bit more depth, go ahead and, if you would, I'm sure a lot of people who are listening all over the world, and some that may be in Central Florida are wondering about SALT. So I was wondering if you could go ahead and plug your website for them where they can find SALT and they can learn a little bit more about SALT.
Yeah. The website for SALT, SALT Outreach is www.serviceandlovetogether.org. So it's our acronym, serviceandlovetogether.org.
All right, perfect. So if you're in the Central Florida area and you're listening to this and you'd like to be a part of this community that we're talking about, definitely come out and introduce yourselves. Tell us you heard about us on Bible Talk. Introduce yourself and join in. We believe it's important for all Christians and people who are thinking about becoming Christian to serve and to learn and to walk a day in the footsteps of Christ. Mm-hmm. And we think it's important that people do that. So definitely come out. Tell us that you heard on the show on YouTube or on the YouTube channel Bible Talk with Amery, or if you heard us on skyangelsradio.com. Anyway, so talking about community. There are different ways and different outcomes from community. I kind of lost my train of thought, but with Bible Talk with Amery and this channel and with the S.A.L.T website, I think people can start online, but online shouldn't be the end all. You know what I mean?
Right.
They should from there be directed. You can communicate online during the week or whatever, that's fine, but it should always end up in some sort of service, some sort of, whether it's like, hey, we're all going to join Habitat for Humanity, build houses for poor people or whatever. We're going to go feed the homeless, or hey, we're going to go down to this street and pick up trash, help out the community. And while we're out there, we're going to have signs telling people who we are.
Right.
Or, whatever. It could be going downtown and passing out tracts. But I think what I was going to get into with community is the reason why I think a lot of people are leaving the church. I think a lot of people are leaving the church. A lot of young people are leaving the church because number one, they don't have anybody in church to talk to. Mm-hmm. Anybody their age. Number two, it's not interesting.
Right.
I have a theory. I think no matter what people are doing, if there's a group of people their age, it will be fun for them, beneficial in some way, and they can kind of, like the Bible says, exhort each other. You see what I'm saying? You can be picking up trash and having a good time.
Yeah.
And still, you know what I mean? What do you think about that?
I believe community needs to happen with purpose. I believe gathering together and socializing is not the end all for building a community. I think, there needs to be purpose. Hence why we wanted to provide both a community and outreach projects for people so they can be involved. But I think also one thing that's very important is whatever you do, if you're a small group and you're trying to start a community of people, believers together, I believe that God has ordained you to create a bigger community by bringing more people to Christ.
Amen.
So if you have 10 people right now and you're in Idaho or North Dakota or some random state, and you're complaining, you're saying, you know what, there aren't that many young people here, blah blah blah, and God is telling you that you need to. It's your responsibility to reach out to that demographic as a young person, at your school, at your job. God has given you. I mean, there's tools online. There's tools where you can download the Bible study guides. You can write the Bible verses down and do Bible studies with people. But you can. God has given you the power to. And has given you the Holy Spirit that you can witness to other people and bring them to a knowledge of Him, that they might also enter your community, and that your community just will continue to grow. I mean, if you look at Acts, there was 120 disciples in the upper room. In Rome at that time, theologians say there was about 180 million people. By the end of the book of Acts, theologians say that there were over 1 million people that were Christians. So look at that difference in the span of I think it was I don't know how many years, but it wasn't that long. It wasn't that many years. In a span of that many years, 1 million people were brought to Christ.
They were working,
right? They created the community.
Okay. That's a good point. For people that are listening and, they're looking around and maybe some of these points fit their community, fit their church. Maybe there's no one, maybe there's like 5 people in their church who are their age. Maybe they're thinking, well, how can I get this started? Well, let me ask you this. Where do you get your drive from to do things like start up S.A.L.T and where do you get this from? Because I have a similar drive. Obviously I'm doing stuff, but tell listeners, people you are trying to help out, people who you want to kind of duplicate, yourself into, so they can build community as well. Where do you get this drive?
Well, I guess you could say, for me, a thing that's helped me the most, obviously we know that it's God's will that everyone is saved.
Right.
We know by the events that the time is near.
Mm-hmm.
For me, we're past the time where we settle for mediocre goals and mediocre prayers. Mm-hmm. Now's the time that we start shooting for the sky. For me, I know when I first came to Christ, our brains are very interesting. If you set a goal, then your brain subconsciously will compute how to get to that goal, the fastest and most efficient way. Subconsciously, and so there'll be times where you get ideas, where things happen, and it's like, oh wow, it's because of this goal I set. Mm-hmm. You need to set an impossible goal, and I honestly suggest setting a goal for winning souls.
Amen.
So for me, obviously this seems impossible. I know it is possible with God, because all things are possible with God, and I know this is as well. But when I first came to Christ, my goal was to win 1 million souls for Christ in my lifetime.
Wow.
And so because of that goal, I believe God has used my subconscious to implant ideas and use the Spirit to implant ideas into my mind to make that goal a reality. So I believe that whoever, if you're listening, set a goal. Set a goal. Even if it's 1 soul a year, 10 souls a year, whatever that number is, whatever you feel you have the faith for, go for that goal, and God will do something with that.
Let me say this: that your goal is a very large goal, and it's a great goal. Very ambitious. People are built differently. Let's say that. I think maybe your personality type is more geared towards leadership and business and that kind of thing. But for the personality types, for the shy people, because a part of our duty as Adventists is not just to sit on the pews and warm pews, right?
Yeah.
A part of our duty is to win souls, right? We have to win souls. Not everyone will win the same amount of souls. We have people like Mark Finley and Doug Batchelor who are going to have like thousands of stars in their crown, right?
Yeah.
But doesn't mean we shouldn't try, right?
Right.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, mentioning Mark Finley, he shared a story, and I don't remember the exact number, but it was about a woman who was shy, very shy, in South America. She was so shy that she couldn't. It was very hard for her to share her faith with other people. So she loved to cook. So what she did was she invited people over for dinner, and she'd play a DVD of Mark Finley,
That's slick.
Doug Batchelor, whatever, and she brought thousands of people to Christ.
Amen.
Just from that.
You see that? That is so creative. I remember the story of Moses and how Moses, when God was calling him to duty, he's like, God, I'm not really good with talking.
Yeah.
God is like, okay, I'll get Aaron for you.
Yeah.
Your brother,
Right.
There's always a way. Even if you can't do it, Aaron would be, in this story that you gave us, the DVD. That's Aaron, right?
Yeah.
So you let something else speak for you. That's a great tactic. So, as a young SDA, and for people who are listening, I think it's important that, you don't have to be a pastor. You don't have to be an evangelist up in front of the stage. You can do what, like what this lady did. You can cook. You can invite people over to your house, friends from work or whatever, and you can have them and you can put on a DVD. It could be something light or whatever, but, you set the mood. And from that, just see where it goes.
Yeah.
God will bless.
Yeah, I just want to, last comment on this.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say that if you look at the story of the woman at the well, she just had an experience with Jesus, and minutes later, she goes into her hometown, and all she does is share her experience with Christ, and the whole town comes to Christ.
Wow.
So everyone that's a Christian has a testimony.
Amen.
God has equipped you to be able to reach other people, and all they have to see is that you share it and that you share it with passion.
Right.
If someone from the world that has passion for golf, can talk so excitedly about golf, but they see you talking about Christ, and with a passion that is just that's out of this world, that's otherworldly.
Right.
It doesn't matter if they're the richest man on earth, if they're a movie star, if they're whatever. That doesn't matter, because if they see that passion, they hear your testimony, you have all that you need to reach people.
It's going to come through to them, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we mentioned young people, leaving the church. And I know I grew up SDA. I grew up in a church. I know I've backslidden a few times, gone out into the world. In particular, I think it's difficult for young people who aren't married. Now I'm married, and let me tell you, it takes like 99% of the burden off of everything. When you are single, it makes it extremely difficult. Not impossible,
Right.
but it makes it extremely difficult. I know there's this. Are you going to Psalms? I know there's this verse where David has a prayer, or there's a verse where he says, "Forgive me for the sins of my youth," right?
Yeah.
There's no "forgive me for the sins of my old age," right? Not that old people don't sin, or not that old people don't get caught up,
Right.
but it's very important. That's why we're doing this Young SDAs discussion, and it's going to be ongoing. So we invite you to subscribe to the channel or continue to tune in, and definitely share it with your friends. You mentioned people leaving the church and, blah, blah, blah. So if they're leaving the church, they're obviously going into the world, right? I think I was listening to Doug Batchelor speak once, and they asked Doug Batchelor what he thinks some of the number one things are, the number one challenges for the church are. And out of his mouth came worldliness. Okay. Now, this isn't what he was talking about in particular, wasn't exactly worldliness in terms of people out in the world who have left the church. He's talking about people in the church who are worldly.
Right.
What I see that as a major challenge. What do you say? What are some things we can, what's some advice you can give people on that? Or what are some things we can, comments on that?
Referring to worldliness entering
in
the church,
or in the church, yeah.
in the church, through young adults and stuff like that.
Like established worldliness. Like there are people in church who, the Spirit of Prophecy talks about nominal Adventists. It talks about nominal, just Adventist in name. When you look at people in the church, sometimes they don't really seem like SDA people. You know what I'm talking about? I've got friends back on the West Coast in California who, they don't even seem like Adventists. They're just like everybody else, but they happen to, it's almost like they stumble into church on a Saturday,
Yeah.
on a Sabbath. And I think that's a major problem. I think the Bible calls us to be special, right? God wants us to be special. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no. When you look at 1 Peter 2:9, it says that we are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, His own special people. In some version, it says His own peculiar people, that we may proclaim the praises of Him who called us out of darkness into His marvelous light. And He has made us, if we truly follow Christ and what the Word says, we will be peculiar. The world will look at us and they will think that we stand out. I think that we've compromised as young people. We've compromised. We've decided to indulge in different TV series, in movies, in certain movies that promote. I remember the last time I saw a secular movie. It was like Transformers. I think it was the second one or something. And I saw it, and I'm like, you know what? And I hadn't seen a movie in a couple months before that. And my thinking was, oh, I could handle this, whatever. I'm watching this movie, and I'm like, you know what? For fun, let me count how many of the commandments are broken during this movie. And when I got to 30 some in Transformers, I was like, you know what? I can't sit here. I can't pay for a movie, and I can't sit here and watch and enjoy a movie when I know that God's commandments are being broken over and over and over again.
It's programming, man.
And exactly. And so it's Satan is using these avenues to implant to desensitize us to sin. And if we wonder why is it that we keep sinning, and we keep asking for forgiveness for the same stuff, what are we indulging in? What are we doing?
What latest series?
Yeah, what latest series are we watching, or what movie did I see the other day that might have caused this, or what? We're just becoming. There needs to be a difference. We need to.
I think you made some very valid points. I just want to comment on that. I think people are afraid to be different, man.
Yeah.
People are afraid to look like nerds. People are afraid to look like dorks.
It's crazy because truly, I believe that wherever I go, my prayer is that God can have me to stand out wherever I'm at, that people might see me through see him, through my actions. And through what I do, and that the Spirit guides me. At work, I work at Trader Joe's. The coworkers, they talk about different things. They talk about, people they've, just different conversations that are secular.
Right.
But not engaging in those conversations, talking about things that make you excited about Christ, not working on the Sabbath. Trying to be the hardest worker in that place, because as if we're representing the character of Christ, the true character of Christ, we need to represent that in our lives, in our workplaces. We need to be at the top. At our schools, there should be no reason why we're not 4.0 students, And I just think that it's really not all that. You don't have to worry about people thinking you're weird. People think I'm weird. But it's a kind of weird that they want to learn about, because they think, because it's like when I'm going through a tough time and they know I'm going through a tough time, but I'm smiling.
Right.
That's weird. And so they wonder. So even though they might think that's weird, they want to have that weirdness because they want to experience the same thing.
So sort of an attractive weirdness, kind of like how like a kung fu monk or something. He's weird. He's out there like balancing on one toe, but he's healthy and he's intriguing. People are like, whoa, okay, your lifestyle. He's up in the mountains praying and this and that. So it's different, but it's not like way out in left field, right?
Right. Like Christ was weird, but we read so many times in the Desire of Ages, in the Bible, we see crowds surrounding him. So it wasn't. It was a weird, but not one that, that's unattractive. It was an attractive weirdness,
Okay, good point. So, all right, so we got to be different. This is one of the main problems, man. A lot of SDA kids, a lot of young people, they, in the Spirit of Prophecy talks about this, man. We look like the world. We, not to say that you can't shop at, H&M or whatever. Yeah. But, obviously if you're a young woman listening to this, you can't be in a mini skirt. You can't, that's not what God has for you. You can't look like, that. You can't, it's gotta be you got to choose. We don't we don't have our own stores, so you gotta and we don't have our own. Unfortunately, we don't have our own radio station down here, but you gotta kind of pick from amongst what's out there, right? And you got to make good decisions is what I'm trying to get at. We're not trying to get too deeply into it.
Right.
So what are some solutions for this? What do you recommend for people who are wanting to be
weird?
Yeah, well,
wanting to be like Christ?
Well, yeah, wanting to be like Christ, but see, people are afraid to get ridiculed. Ridicule is such a powerful tool,
Yep.
People make fun of you, they clown you, they make a meme about you or your people,
right?
And then it's over, like you're out of the church, right? Or like you see a lot of SDA people that they're on top of like all the latest this and that, like the latest dress fads and this and that. A friend of mine, she posted a blog the other day, and it was talking about how you got to be in the world but not of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have my own take on that. In the world, of the world to me is of their mentality.
Yeah.
For instance, when it comes to like dating, like we're going to have discussions about dating and all sorts of stuff on this with Young SDAs, but like people have like their own commandments they've made. You know what I mean? Like, look at Steve Harvey. He's got people follow the Steve Harvey way rather than the Bible way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's got think like a man and this and that. He's got the 90-day rule when it comes to dating before people but is that what the Bible says? I think so. I think people are afraid to keep God's commandments because they don't want to be ridiculed. Like, what? You wait for marriage, or what? You don't listen to this? What's wrong with Young Thug? Or what's wrong with Right. And I think we're afraid to be ridiculed, but we have to. What are some solutions, man? What are some things? What keeps you grounded?
I think we have to. I think we have to get to the point where we value souls more than we value what people think of us. I think a lot of us we were so worried about what other people think that we won't reach out to a soul when that soul is a soul whom Christ has died for. And so that all comes from relationship. We have to be in God's word. We have to be in constant prayer with him. We have to serve him. And as we do that, if you think about it, it's really, the root of all sin is selfishness. It's really what it is selfishness, because we're thinking about ourselves. We're thinking about how we feel and what's going to happen to us and what other people are going to think about us. But when you think about it, that none of that matters. What matters is that soul that Christ has died for, that God has called you to reach out to. What matters is that you share Christ with that person, so that person can make a choice whether to follow Christ or not. Once you learn how to value souls, and just reading the Bible, that's going to get implanted in you. But once you learn how to value souls, then what people think about you doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter. But society has taught us that it does matter, and so we have to withdraw from the media and from all these other things, because if you look at shows today, there's like judges on every show, right? It's like they trained us to judge people. You know what I mean? So now we're in this judging mentality. What are people going to think about me? And we see all these opinions and all this stuff and on Facebook and social media, and we start comparing ourselves to each other, and then and see all this stuff, man. We just have to withdraw from the things that are going to affect our mindset,
And I think going back to community, when you have a good sized community, right, and the community is active and people have friends, I think the important thing is that they have friends and they realize they're not in it by themselves. Yeah. And that's why it's so important that young Adventists, young SDAs are part of like ministries and groups, and where they meet on the weekend and they do things, and they go out, they fellowship together, whether it's they go to a restaurant to eat or whether they're serving in some capacity, like I said, Habitat for Humanity, whether they're with SALT, feeding the homeless, or whether they're starting their own ministries. Community is so important because community is strength.
Yep.
When all your friends are involved in church, when everyone's there, you become stronger. And I think that's why the Bible says, forsake not the gathering or the assembling together of yourselves.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Forsake not the gathering together of yourselves, because God knows that when you gather, when you when you talk to people, I have a friend who tried this. He stopped going to church, right?
Yeah.
I don't need to go to church. I just read my Bible. Guess what happened? He fell off.
Yeah, right.
He fell off because he didn't have community. You need to have community.
Right.
Christ calls the church as the body. It's the body, and he's the head.
Yeah.
So you have to be a part of the body.
Mm-hmm.
Humans we're made. People are supposed to be social creatures. So,
Right.
All right. So, final question. We're going to wrap this up here. How do you prepare yourself? How are you preparing yourself for these last days and what's happening in the world? And what do you do? What can you do? What can people learn from you in turn so they can follow in your footsteps?
We have to study Revelation and Daniel. We have to. We also have to study the spirit of prophecy. We need to read the last 10 chapters of the great. I mean, we need to read the whole Great Controversy, but at least the last 10 chapters of the Great Controversy. And there's so many things that. If we just read the spirit of prophecy, that's the reason why God has sent this prophet. There are things that are going to prepare us for this end. I mean, just something as simple as the encyclical, the Pope mentioning the Sabbath, the false Sabbath in the encyclical 4 times, and saying and hinting that that's going to help fix the environment. And then reading the spirit of prophecy and seeing that the reason why we're going to get persecuted is because we're going to be blamed for the environmental disasters.
Right.
Then it makes sense. You connect the dots. It's like, okay, well, I guess if Sunday, if not working on Sunday and following Sunday is going to fix the environment,
then I'm a bad guy. Then
then I'm a bad guy because I'm not doing that. Everyone's going to be for it. There was, and this is in the Great Controversy too. All this stuff in the Great Controversy, but she talks about an example of a group in Africa. When the Sunday law was first introduced there, a while back, I don't know, hundreds of years ago with the papacy, it was introduced. They were Christians worshiping on the Sabbath, on Saturday, and then the Sunday law was introduced, so they just worshipped on both days, no big deal, whatever. You can worship 7 days a week, whatever. But they treated Saturday, the 7th day, as their Sabbath, where they'd rest for that 24-hour period, to have that one-on-one time with God.
Right.
And what happened next was, they were forced to not treat Saturday like their Sabbath,
right,
and to treat Sunday like their Sabbath.
Exactly.
And so they had to. What Ellen White said they did is they compromised and they stopped worshiping on Saturday and worshiped on Sunday. And she obviously talked very negatively about that because they compromised. And eventually, what ended up happening, they lost power or whatever, and they went back to worshiping on Saturday. But the whole point is, there are stories in the Great Controversy. There's a council that's going to help us in these last day events. And now that these things are happening, we're going to be able to put the pieces together. I mean, we see Ben Carson putting Adventism on in the front line. CNN
in the limelight now.
CNN was talking about, CNN News, was talking about in an article what the mark of the beast was for Adventists.
I caught that, yeah.
Yeah. It said, Sunday, they believe that the mark of the beast is Sunday worship. I mean, they were going in on that, talking about
They went in. The rocks were crying out. I mean, that was deep. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I really couldn't believe it. I shared it with a few friends. We got to study. We got to read. And let me bring up an important point. There's a quote that says, and it's in a Great Controversy, basically, I'm going to paraphrase, as people see that the prophecies are true, more and more interest and more people will be brought in. They'll be interested and they'll be willing to listen, basically. I think it's on page 60 or something, 600 or something, 605 or something like that. And that's true, because once you realize it's true, I think for young SDAs, I think a lot of young SDAs think we're kind of weird because we worship on the Sabbath. Everyone else worships on Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, it's like this experiment in psychology where they go into an elevator and everyone was facing the back of the elevator. You seen that study?
No.
They did the study where this guy, they did this on purpose to see what the guy would do. Everyone's in the elevator facing the back, but we know culture tells us we're supposed to go in the elevator and then turn around and then face the door, the opening, right?
Yeah.
So this guy, they put all these people in the elevator and they are all facing the back, the wall. The guy walks into the elevator. He doesn't know what's going on. He looks around, and then instead of doing what he knows is right, he turns around just like the people. So what's happening is I think a lot of young SDAs, they're finding community outside of the church, and they're like, you know what? I'm happy. I wasn't happy because I didn't have this community. I didn't have people my age, and I'm finding community. And even though it's wrong, I know it's wrong, I'm going to do it anyway. But I believe that here's what I believe, and this is what the Spirit of Prophecy tells us. The Spirit of Prophecy tells us, number one, a lot of people who left the church are going to come back. Okay? Number two, when people, as I just mentioned, as people see things happening, like the Pope standing up before Congress.
Yeah, right.
As people see these prophecies get fulfilled, guess what's going to happen? They're going to wake up, man. They're going to wake up and they're going to start coming back to church. They're going to start being active and they're going to start caring now, because now we're not weird anymore.
Right.
We're right now.
Yeah.
We're correct.
Right.
We have the truth. Now it's like, whoa, it's been solidified. So I think there's going to be a changing of the tide, per se. I think things are going to change. Not to say that everybody's going to just come rushing back, but I think there's definitively going to be some changes, and I think young people are going to start to wake up, and I'm really excited about that. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm excited too, man. I'm excited too. The loud cry is going to happen, and people are going to be drawn out, and they're going to follow God. You know, we're prophecy so that to wake us up. You know, we're asleep. So, yeah. All
right, definitely. Okay. Everyone, thank you for listening to Bible Talk with Amery. Once again, you can find Eric at his website. What is it again?
Yep, serviceandlovetogether.org.
All right, serviceandlovetogether.org. Also, feel free to download our free King James Version, Pure Cambridge Edition audio Bible. You can find it on the Google PlayStore. Once again, it is free, and definitely look out for some upcoming episodes. We're going to be talking about a lot more things affecting the SDA community with young people. And anyway, thank you for listening to Bible Talk with Amery, and God bless.